There is an anti-change group, there's an anti-reform group, there's an anti-science group, there's a flat earth group, if I may say so, over the evidence that exists about climate change, and we've got to show them that the scientific evidence is strong.
Polar bears, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time ago, that polar bears really aren't endangered. Well, polar bears can get that word. So,
well, the number of polar bears have increased, actually, on average.
You don't think they're endangered, do you?
The number of polar bears have increased.
Do you think they're endangered?
The number of polar bears have increased. The number of polar bears increase, surely they're not endangered. And the church did with that hearing. No, I mean, Vice President Gore hasn't actually moved. Vice President, we're not doing a debate. No, this is the question. I have to answer the question.
Our generation's response to this challenge will be judged by history. For if we fail to meet it boldly, swiftly, and together, we risk consigning future generations to an irreversible catastrophe.
Research centre is somehow scientifically flawed. Emails were sent between British researchers and their counterparts in American universities, and it's the language that's been causing the stir. It's all very complicated, but there are discussions about what scientific data should be released.
There was once a land where the weather was very, very strange. There were awful heat waves in some parts, and in others terrible storms and floods. Scientists said it was being caused by too much CO2, which went up into the sky when the grown-ups used energy. They said the CO2 was getting dangerous. Its effects were happening faster than they had thought. Some places could even disappear under the sea, and it was the children of the land who'd have to live with the horrible consequences. The grown-ups realized they had to do something. They discovered that over 40% of the CO2 was coming from ordinary everyday things like keeping houses warm and driving cars, which meant if they made less CO2, maybe they could save the land for the children.
Is there a happy ending?
It's up to us how the story ends. See what you can do. Search online for ACT on CO2.
The conventional wisdom that everything that Al Gore says, everything David Suzuki writes about global warming and climate change is absolutely accurate and believable. Now, I'm not an expert in this area. I'm just a journalist, but unlike so many other people in media, I don't lie about it. I don't pretend that because I've read a book or two, I know everything about the science of global warming.
Now to a big summit on climate change getting underway today in Denmark. Representatives from more than 190 nations are in attendance, and next week President Obama will be there as well. NBC's Chief Environmental Affairs correspondent Ann Thompson is in Copenhagen. Ann, good morning.
Good morning, Meredith. President Obama is coming for the end of that conference, and he will join about 109 other heads of state. But today, as the conference opened, the delegates here heard that this could be their last best chance to deal with the consequences of climate change. But overshadowing all of this is a scandal involving some stolen emails that has skeptics once again questioning the whole idea of global warming. Climate science is ripe for political theater. The cabinet of Nepal meeting at the foot of Mount Everest, where glaciers in the Himalayas are shrinking. The Maldives cabinet meeting underwater to show what could happen to this island nation if sea levels rise. Even Hollywood has gotten into the act. Now in Britain, a different kind of show. A scandal called Climategate. It involves a series of emails stolen from the Climate Research Unit at the University of East Anglia, a leading climate science institute.
And now, from Minnesotans for global warming, it's a Climategate Christmas. Oh, Climategate, those hacked emails have sealed your fate. Oh, Climategate, Michael's trick was really great. Medieval warming now is done, also the modern phenomenon. Oh, Climategate, maybe now we can debate. You'll also get don't sign your name at Copenhagen, fa la 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 la. I can't cope with all this changing, fa la 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 la.
Now this is contrary to reason, it's contrary to elementary physics, but that is what the computer programs that run these models are told to assume. See, the computer models can't tell us the answer to our question about what is the effect of CO2 on temperature, how much warming will we get. They are told that information at the outset.
Good evening. We may never know how emails from the world-renowned Climatic Research Unit of the University of East Anglia ended up posted on a site run by climate change skeptics. But with the countdown to the Copenhagen summit now being ticked off in days, their impact is clearly expected to be significant, especially since the skeptics have seized upon some incendiary words. Is it possible scientists have been playing fast and loose with the facts, or are they simply guilty of naivety? Our science editor, Susan Watts, reports.
This is about as scandalous as it gets in climate science. Just weeks before the Copenhagen talks, hackers apparently break into a UK university department, dump thousands of emails, apparently on a Russian server, sparking allegations that climate scientists are attempting to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. The climate skeptic blogosphere has seized upon the email exchanges, saying they're apparent admissions of cooking the books, and calling this Climategate. They point to requests to delete email correspondence and apparent attempts to keep raw temperature data away from the public. One email from the director of the University of East Anglia's Climatic Research Unit, Phil Jones, has attracted most comment. It talks about using Mike's nature trick to hide the decline. Climate skeptic websites see this as evidence of underhand practice. Jones himself says he used the word trick in the science journal Nature colloquially, as in a clever thing to do, and that it's ludicrous to suggest that it refers to anything untoward. So why does any of this matter?
Climate science is now at the heart of policy, and that policy means big changes in the way we live to move to a low-carbon economy, and large amounts of money to be spent by government, by business, and ultimately by taxpayers. So people will want to know, can we trust the science?
There are scientists who have quibbled for years with some of the data. Fred Singer says satellite data paints a different picture to the mainstream view. He sees the emails as potentially damaging.
It suggests fraud and messing with data, and I think it will have a strong influence on the credibility of the science that's used to support the politicians' view that we must control carbon dioxide.
In spite of these emails, the majority scientific view, backed by computer modelling, remains that the Earth is warming in response to rising concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. But that doesn't mean that there is never any difference in outcome from individual models. Some climate models have suggested we may be in for a couple of decades of cooling. Others, like this one here at the Met Office, disagree. So no wonder people can be confused about what's going on and who to believe. But this apparent discrepancy may not be as big a problem as it appears. Making sense of each of the individual elements of our climate, like the oceans and the wind, is one thing. But to get the really big picture, you have to start to understand how they all work together. And that's when you really appreciate the true scale of the problem.
It's easy to understand that by just looking at the weather. I mean, today we have clouds that have scales of maybe a few kilometers. They're being blown into us by a weather system which itself has a scale of 1,000 or several thousand kilometers. The weather systems themselves are being blown across the Atlantic by the jet streams, the strong wind streams in the upper atmosphere, which have scales of tens of thousands of kilometers. And then the whole weather systems are being modulated by the currents and temperatures in the oceans across the world. And we have to get all of this complexity into a single computer model of the climate system. So scales varying from tens of thousands of kilometers down to individual kilometer systems.